to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and today we're talking about the outdoor-themed ad that got the attention of everyone. It came out just before Thanksgiving, and I'm of course talking about Snoop Dogg giving up smoke for Solo Stove's smokeless fire pit. The ad that came out just before Thanksgiving, and joining me on the Rock Fight to talk about how the ad came together and what it means or should mean for the way outdoor brands advertise is one of the architects of the campaign, Dickey. Chris is the founder and owner of Purple Orange, which is a digital communications agency. Purple Orange managed the back-end engagement on the campaign for Solo Stove, so when measuring the impact of the ad and evaluating how an ad like this can influence the outdoor industry, Chris and his team are who you want to be talking to. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. You and I met, you were doing PR for Pro Bar about 13 years ago, 12 years ago? When was that? Like 2011?
Yes, so long ago. I remember that conversation. I think you were instrumental in helping us get that contract, so I still owe you for that one.
I don't know if do you owe me for that one? Because I think you're working with Snoop Dogg now.
Yes, yeah, because everything rolls into the next thing. It's like, you need the first thing to get to the next step.
Well, getting into why we're chatting today. So I initially missed the teaser that everyone freaked out about. My wife and kids saw it. The just sort of, the teaser that got rolled where it was just Snoop going, "Hey, I'm giving up smoke," and like everybody freaked out. Like, what does this mean? And then the ad came out. And I saw the full 30-second spot after it was released online. As it's happening, where everyone was sort of like, what is happening? How is this? What is going on? And then the ad was great, and it goes over huge, and it's dominating not just outdoor social media and outdoor media in general, but kind of everywhere. I know you and the Purple Orange team participated on this project primarily on the media side and messaging side of things. But, a project like this, every role has weight. So let's start with, how did the project even come together?
Solo Stove is a company. They're public. They're a small cap company, but they're starting to become a pretty household name out there. And they're constantly thinking to themselves, how do we grow the pie? It's like we already, in terms of the pie that exists today, we own a pretty good chunk of it. But how do we grow that pie? And so they just recognize they need to kind of get outside of the box. They need to reach new audiences. They started kind of really experimenting with stuff. They're very opportunistic company. This stuff wasn't planned like 9 months in advance, like a lot of, I think, big agency activations are. This came together pretty last minute. I think the initial idea was floated sometime in September. And that's the first time it kind of came on our radar. We talked about a little bit about how this might go down and how PR would play a big role. And then the trail.
Are they your client, or Solo Stove your client normally, or were you just brought in specifically for this project?
They're our client. Yeah. Okay. So we're agency of record with them on a few different things. We do all of their influencer work. We do all of their affiliate work. And we do all of their PR work. But this came from an ad agency that was trying to work with Solo Stove, and Solo Stove was like, hey, pitch us and see what happens. And they kind of threw a lot of different ideas out there. Solo Stove sent them back. They brought some new ones out. One of the ones was Snoop. And they're like, how would this actually work? Let's talk to our agency, our PR agency about it. And so we kind of came to the table. And then I think the big thing that was challenging was honestly just getting Snoop to sign a contract. So
that sounds like that would be the biggest, the hardest part.
It was like everyone was on board, and this would be really fun. We felt like it would have potential to go very viral and be really special, and we wanted to time it right before the holidays. But then there was a real concern that we wouldn't get it done in time, and that we were like, man, maybe this has to be a Super Bowl commercial or something. We might not get to the finish line and have enough time to produce the assets to make this thing work. And so then it surfaced again, and it kind of trailed off, and then it surfaced again in early November, if you can believe it. And they're like, I think this is happening. And the word is that Snoop didn't actually sign the contract until 10 days before the whole thing went down. So we had 10 days to produce all the content. And when I say we, I meant Solo Stove and the greater team.
So 10 days before it was scheduled to launch, the ad was scheduled to launch?
Yes. Yeah. 10 days before he dropped that now infamous post that he's quitting smoke across his social channels that reach around 130 million people. And so we know this is the moment, and we really can't let it slide because there was a very tight timeline. This thing needed to like drop before Black Friday. So
Right.
this dropped on November 16th, which I believe was a Thursday. By the time Friday hit, it was we gave it the weekend to kind of marinate, and then we went live with it, kind of what we characterized as the reveal on Monday, the 20th, and then that week was Thanksgiving week. So it was kind of like how do we tee up Solo Stove in a major top of funnel way right in
I'm trying
front
to
of
picture like
Black
all your
Friday.
other clients being like, "Hey, well, we need to talk to you." And you're like, "Yeah, not right now. I'll get back to you." We got
So,
Snoop on the other line.
dude, I'll tell you, I worked 2 straight weekends. I did not take a day off. But you know what? It came together beautifully. It was high stakes. It was one of those things
Did you
where
get to go to the shoot?
no, we were not invited to the shoot.
Ah,
We were involved with like the messaging and the actual kind of what was going to be said in the Instagram post and how we were going to manage it as questions rolled in because
yeah.
inevitably like everyone's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
call his promotion agency and say, hey, what's going on with Snoop? And can we get Snoop to come on our podcast and talk about it, sort of thing. And it was all kind of teed up to say, hey, like Snoop needs some time right now. He's thinking a lot. He's got a lot on his mind. And then we were really concerned. He had a big live performance that was on Amazon Prime. Funny enough, like
Hmm.
that weekend, and we were all concerned that he was going to smoke up on stage.
And then you're gonna get all the TikToks like he didn't quit smoke. Look, check it out.
We actually had a bit of a crisis communications meeting about it. I'm like, okay, so he's going live in front of Amazon Prime, tomorrow morning, or like tomorrow evening, and what happens if he lights up on stage? And we're like,
That's amazing.
yeah. And then there was just a lot of opportunity for someone to leak that this was a promotion and it wasn't legit. Because we were of course for something like this we want the authentic reaction and shock value that comes from the most prolific smoker in the world saying that he's giving up smoke. Um,
Right.
and and we got that. And funny enough, so this dropped on a Thursday. And then by Friday morning, Snoop's publicist called up Solo Stove, and they were kind of spooked because they were like, "This thing has gone bigger than we possibly could have imagined. We knew it would be a big deal, but it's a really big deal right now. We want to go live tomorrow. Like we want to do the reveal tomorrow. Fortunately, and then Solo Stove called us up and was like, "What do you think about going live tomorrow?" And we're like, "Don't do it. Like you signed the
Yeah.
contract. Like."
Right. Right.
They are contractually have to abide by this. Like we want the full virality of this thing to play out for the next like 4 or 5 days.
Hell yeah.
And if we cut it short, it's not going to reach as many people. So let it like refuse to do it. We'll do first thing Monday morning. We'll move that up a little bit, but let it sink in over the course of the weekend. And we're really glad we did. Um, NPR Morning Edition picked it up and talked about it nationally on NPR. The Associated Press picked it up and it was on and they did it and it was on every nightly news station from like coast to coast and it had every newspaper. And Forbes and this is where I started getting a little bit intense was that Snoop was in, there were other people that were so motivated by Snoop they were also giving up, their own
Oh my
like
God.
addictions, I guess you could
Like
say.
fans are like, all right,
And
I'm
other and
gonna
other
quit now.
celebrities, like there was other celebrities that went that posted like, "Hey, Snoop's a real inspiration. I'm going to give up my marijuana too." Um, and that's where we're like, oh shoot, like
You like DMing them like, dude, it's a fucking fire pit. Like just it's
we're like, and then the funniest one was that Forbes wrote an article what corporate executives can learn from Snoop Dogg, and like
like from
his
him giving up smoke. You
yes,
mean
yes, yes, like his candor about this
Forbes?
subject. And so yeah, there was certainly some people out there that got burned, but I think by and large, come Monday morning when we dropped. the formal press release, and we also did some like kind of behind the scenes media work during that kind of long weekend. So
Hmm.
that we had a lot of media drop very like literally like 2 minutes after he made the announcement on social channels that he was going smokeless with Solo Stove. There was like media ready to go, and so and we had to be really careful about that because like we there was certainly a whole lot of folks in especially like kind of the whole celebrity and gossip
Yeah,
flywheel
sure.
and
Yeah.
and also anyone in the news cycle that would have loved to have blown the cover on this thing. But we kind of reached out to folks that were more on the commerce and product side, and like we teed it up with from an affiliate perspective, and we did like a limited edition Snoop Dogg fire pit and had that out there the second that this whole thing was revealed.
So did you like, so your team, I mean, you knew this was going to be big. I mean, because it's Snoop Dogg, and it's if you're typically operating in more like
I mean,
the active sports space. Was there any sort of were people kind of chomping their nails in your office as this was all unfolding, and like Forbes is putting out potentially like not damaging, but sort of like embarrassing articles about this? You know what I mean?
there was definitely like a lot of giggling, as like this thing went down and everybody's social feeds just started to explode. Like it was almost instantaneous. Like Snoop announced this
Right.
thing within 45 minutes, our social feeds were all exploding, and nobody had any idea that we were involved in it. Um, but
That's
no,
so cool, man.
what did we? They recognized that we counted just in North America about
Hmm.
5 billion media impressions that in about a 6 day period. Impressions are what they are. It's not really necessarily reach, but it shows the depth of coverage and how big how the size of publications that picked this up. Like Bloomberg picked it up, and we saw this, on Wall Street Journal and things. I'm trying to think about it. I think we saw something like 1.2 million reposts and or engagements of this like on social channels, and when you kind of think about the 1.2 million people sharing something about Snoop Dogg going smokeless, and this was combined before and after the reveal.
I was gonna
Um,
say, how much of that was the teaser versus the
I
reveal?
don't know if I have that broken out, but it was most of it's the teaser.
Yeah, right.
And then if you think about the reach of those 1.2 million reposts or like mentions in social channels, the reach was over a trillion. It's something insane. Like so, and literally, I mean, like my mother-in-law, who's in her 70s and lives in Florida, heard about this. Like my brother, who is a physician and isn't connected to any social channels, heard about this, and so it really did fully saturate like pop culture in a way that I just
Yeah.
haven't seen anything happen like that ever, really. That's
Well,
definitely not my professional life.
it's impressive. I mean, 2023. I mean, we did an episode on Halloween, Justin Hausman and I, where we broke down the Blair Witch Project just because we wanted to do an outdoor movie review, which what I consider to be the greatest outdoor movie of all time. The thing that we talk about the reason why that movie is so effective, which I still find to be a very effective film, but the time it came out and the
Mm.
virality of it, and we didn't know if it was real or not, and those kinds of things. It's next to impossible to do that. I mean, I was reading the book about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the lengths they would go to keep scripts under lock and never handing out a full script to anybody because of how easy it is for information to spread in the modern age. I mean, that's the fact that you even with Snoop Dogg's people being like, we want to move this up and do it sooner. And you're like, nope,
Yeah,
we're riding this out, baby. Like,
yeah.
that's
But we
incredible.
didn't want to write it for too long either because we knew that it would
Right.
naturally trail off, and it would kind of
Sure. Right.
settle, and we didn't want the dust to fully settle on it. So I
Yeah.
actually looking back on it, I'm like, no, that was ideal. Like everything kind of all the hammers dropped perfectly in synchrony.
Do you think there's anyone out there who didn't see the reveal and just are still stuck on the teaser? They're like, oh my, no, Snoop doesn't smoke anymore,
No,
guys.
well, here's the fun part is that like the initial prank was just so good, and like we had the NPRs and like the Associated Presses cover this thing that they were basically forced to like issue an update to the story. As like legitimate news outlets, NPR had to come back on Monday. I think it was actually Tuesday, the following Tuesday morning after the Monday thing happened. I said, remember how we talked about Snoop Dogg last week giving up smoke? Apparently he didn't. Like old dogs don't learn. Old dogs don't learn new tricks,
You
sort of
made
thing.
NPR for
Ye-
1% of retraction.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And then same thing with like Associated Press. Basically picked up our press release and circulated it.
This is where you just close Purple Orange. You like drop the mic. Like, okay, guys, it's not going to get better than this. All right, you know.
No, I definitely told my team, I like, you know what, like you guys are exhausted right now, and I fully am empathetic to how hard you've been working, but pinch yourselves because this is not
Yeah.
going to happen again, you know.
Right.
And you know, people are like, oh, how do we do Snoop Dogg again? I'm like, you
You
don't. It
don't.
like happens once ever, and like it's there's a lot to learn from it, and there's a lot to learn from like how you can kind of maybe engineer something else, but that scale
Yeah.
and like Snoop has built his brand for like what 30 plus years.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's a tremendous he was a tremendous protagonist for this story because I think he has like a lot of legitimacy. He's not seen as being as like a sellout. He's just fun. He's family friendly at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves him across the kind of the political spectrum, and he's the only guy who could get away with this.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
and he put his
Yeah.
own equity on the table. Like he's built, you know, his own brand equity around smoke and all this stuff in it for 30 years, and we blew it up. He let us blow it up, you know?
Yeah.
So he,
No, I think we said before we hit record, like who's like infallible at this point? It's like Taylor Swift and Snoop. Like who else? Like name, you mentioned Dolly Parton. I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, it's not
yeah,
like they're the last kind of old school celebrities where we all care about what they do and
everybody loves them.
right.
Yeah. And they haven't been embroiled in any big scandals or like they haven't, you know, it's like just they haven't done anything super weird that have like, you know, it's not like Tom Cruise or
Yeah.
like something,
You have to feel guilty about watching his movies, you know?
Yeah, it's like, ugh.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of how this relates to the, you know, what outdoor brands can learn from something like this, right? Because, you know, to the core human-powered outdoor enthusiasts, which is what we talk mostly about on this show. I mean, Solo Stove's a little more outdoor adjacent. Obviously, as a brand, it's much larger than probably a lot of outdoor brands. But in terms of, you know, the brands that tend to drive the human-powered category, it's, you know, the apparel, footwear, gear brands.
Mhm.
But, you know, Solo
Yep.
Stove is well positioned in our community. And I just see them as a great test case when it comes to outdoor messaging coming off of this campaign because my
Mhm.
observation, and this goes back to my time working at a brand like Polar Tech and just sort of now sort of being, you know, a civilian in the outdoor industry and observing this, there just seems to still be a reluctance to either speak to a wider audience or even use tactics that go against how outdoor brands view themselves when it comes to outdoor brands and products. I think there's an over-reliance on the promotion of innovation and heritage that, you know, our brand will help you be adventurous as fuck out there. Like, you should buy our stuff because. But anyway, so just kind of what do you think from your experience working with outdoor brands and your experience on something like this, which I understand is a one of one, but still, what can outdoor brands take away from something like this?
Great question. I think the biggest thing is, you know, that I've recognized across my years in the outdoor industry is that brands are always overly concerned about alienating their core user. It's something that they're like, oh, if we do this, people aren't going to think that we're authentic, sort of thing. And I'm like, just get over yourselves. Like, number one, like, be an adult here.
Yeah.
Like, if you make great stuff, like, you're not going to alienate your users by like going broader. You
Right.
know, like, I think the way you alienate your users is by creating product that nobody wants anymore. But if you keep the product at a high level and you're continuing to like innovate and your marketing is going bigger in a way that like, you know, Solo Stove is definitely adjacent. I wouldn't characterize them as an outdoor company, although it's a backyard brand, you know. And I think we're fairly open about that. Like that's the direction that their product development is headed. Just to not be afraid of like recognizing that there are a whole lot of different use cases and there's a whole lot of like fun ways that you can talk to new audiences and to stop being so darn worried about alienating your core, you know,
The
seriously.
funny thing with that is that, as I heard a lot of the same things when I was working at Polar Tech and I was sitting with brands, and that drives me a little crazy. One, because it's already happened. You know, we always used to say like outdoor isn't what outdoor was like in the '90s when it was like I'm outdoor. This is an identity. Like, you know, anything that's done outside now is viewed as outdoor by young people. So if feel
Yeah.
like you have to protect something, like that ship has sailed. You know what I mean? Like it is not. Like I said, you know, if VF is multiple billions of dollars, you know, and owning Timberland, Smartwool, you know, the North Face, all these things. So
Mhm.
it's and they're not selling, mountaineering clothing to all of those people to get that billions of dollars, right? These are huge consumer-based brands now. And I understand that you want to maintain that authenticity, but you're also saying the only way you would lose that authenticity is if you stop making anything that's for the core audience and you focus only on making crappy little trinkets, like that. It's like, oh, what happened to that brand?
No, I mean, making a bunch of cheap fleeces, and stop making, it's like. I think I actually have a lot of respect for North Face. I think they've done a really good job. Another company that I really respect is Nike.
Sure.
There's a brand that should be up there with Eddie Bauer in terms of like a legacy brand. They've been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about them as a legacy brand. They don't talk about themselves as a legacy brand. They're constantly reimagining what the brand is and like their products are, and they're always speaking to the core audience, but they're not alienating anyone else by like having really fashionable sneakers in New York City,
Right.
And I think they do really good job leaning into it all and just kind of being and staying cool, and activating with people who you wouldn't necessarily expect they would activate with.
That's a really good one. I know in the last week or so, there's been they're having some financial issues over there. They're going through some layoffs. Matt Powell's been reporting on some of the issues that are happening at Nike. But unlike maybe a month ago when I saw like, oh, Wolverine's having some problems, like, oh, how's that going to play out? What's going to happen with those brands there? When I see, oh, Nike's run into some like business issues, I was like, it's all right. They'll figure it out. I mean, it's not all right. I feel bad for anyone who loses their job or anything like that, of course.
Yeah.
But in terms of the brand, like it's Nike. Like Nike, it's fine. They will be fine.
Tremendous brand. Yeah. And it's just a great way of constantly reinventing themselves and I think staying in front of design and doing a lot of fun stuff. That's frankly it. And they're not afraid of like alienating track runners.
Yeah, right.
Like, they own track.
You're Nike.
Like when they went into tennis, they're not worried about like alienating track runners. They're just like they're able to kind of enter all these. And then I think fashion is the one that I'm really impressed with Nike. It's like they sell like their old Air Jordans for so much money, and they have this whole division of the company that does nothing but fashion, and it still doesn't alienate anybody. In fact, it makes the brand cooler. So
I think that's interesting. Like, because I think about like, and I gave them a bunch of grief earlier this year, but like, the Outside Festival that got announced. And it wasn't so much that Outside wanted to have a big outdoor festival. I think that's a cool idea. It's just the way it was, again, leaning into that authenticity of the core, using air quotes, outdoor market. And it's the announcements made by Robin Thurston there in his spandex, cycling kit. And, the soundtrack to some like acoustic guitar with like two people paddling a ducky down the river. And it's like, I would rather see Snoop Dogg. Like, I mean, like, why can't, like, like outdoor enthusiasts like popular music too? Like, get a cool celebrity to promote your thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're not losing authenticity as an outdoor publication or media company. Like, bring in a heavy hitter that's going to have people watch that video and go, oh, shit, they got that person? Well, yes, sign me up. I'm going to sponsor this, or I'm going to buy tickets, or whatever it is. And I just think I keep seeing these missed opportunities for what is inherently cool space in the outdoors to become even cooler with the mainstream.
I think the messenger does matter. I think like aligning yourself with the wrong spokespeople can be a pretty big mistake. But finding the right people and finding the message that feels authentic and real and fun is always a great solution to do. And I guess I think with outdoor companies, it's like North Face has done a really good job, and I think in the outdoor industry, like in really core people might not see North Face as that brand anymore, but I guarantee every executive in the outdoor industry is super envious of what they've been able to do.
I agree. I think
how they've been able to grow the pie.
No, and I think they were smart about how they brought products to market. They maintained the Summit series, so they have like their top of the mountain collection. They have the legendary climbing team, which has been around since you and I were basically kids. And then
they have Jimmy Chin and Cutter and Anchor. I mean, like everyone respects those
totally,
guys.
And Alex Honnold. And I mean, like some of the most just amazing athletes. But then they can also do a lot of fashion thing. That's why, honestly, like, and I know you said you didn't get a chance to check it out, but the helicopter TikTok stunt, honestly, it's kind of felt a little beneath North Face, like, and then they definitely caught some flack, at least in the comments anyway, of like, well, what was the carbon footprint of taking that helicopter up to deliver a jacket to a TikToker, and it was a weird way to say, hey, let's engage with TikTok and let's do it with a helicopter ride up the side of a mountain for something that I still question if it was authentic or not. So I don't know, that was a bit of a weird one because I agree with you. Generally speaking, I think the North Face, for as big as they've become, has managed it really, really well, just like Patagonia has in their own way.
Yeah, I would agree, and they both leaned into their own causes. I think obviously Patagonia's is the environment. North Face is like kind of underprivileged folks who don't have the same access to the outdoors. And I really appreciate that they're focused on that because not enough people are. And I think it also like dovetails their brand messaging is that we want to be for everybody. They're very inclusive. Like they kind of lean into the fact that inner city people are wearing their stuff. And rather than saying, oh, we don't want to be for them,
Right.
They're definitely not doing that Abercrombie & Fitch thing.
So are there any opportunities that you see for outdoor brands or products and how they could not necessarily engage with pop culture figures like Snoop Dogg, but sort of engage in like mainstream culture to find a bigger audience?
Yeah, I mean, for every brand, it's gonna be different, right? And like whether they're footwear or outerwear or they're hard goods. But yeah, there's. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just like it's about taking a few risks and recognizing the importance of upper funnel, and the importance of like building a brand. I think for young companies, like I wouldn't necessarily recommend that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely like a more mature life cycle. A brand has to think about this. But yeah, I mean, you have to build affinity, and that's what ends up being your moat is the fact that you have people who love you. It's not like someone's always going to be trying to eat your lunch or do something a little bit more innovative than you or come in at a little bit better price point. But your moat is always going to be people who love you and they think that you're doing something really, really cool, and they're willing to pay a little bit of a premium to buy your
Yeah.
stuff. And I think Patagonia recognized that a long time ago. It's like they're done. They're not doing anything special with their clothing, but they built a fantastic moat around their brand.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. So cool to learn about how it actually happened. And this is the outdoor story of the year as far as I'm concerned. So I appreciate you coming on and giving us the inside scoop.
Dude, so fun to connect and stoked to be on your podcast. Thank you.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. All right, that's the pod for today. Thanks to my guest, Chris Dickey. You can learn more about Purple Orange PR if you head to purpleorange.agency. I've also included links to see the Solo Stove Snoop Dogg collaboration in the show notes in case you spent Thanksgiving living under a rock and missed it. Want to send your thoughts on the ad or just reach out to the show in general? You can do so by sending an email to myrockfight@gmail.com. You can also find the Rockfight on socials where we are at _Rockfight_ on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. Please follow the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an outdoor idea aimed at your head. And The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out is another pop culture icon, Krista Makes, with the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters. Rock Fight!